by and pick up that information, look at it, or make a copy of it with their cell phone, then I'm also in violation of Principle 4. Principle 5 is that the information must be generally available. That means these information must be kept in a in a reasonable way that can be accessed in a reasonable way. Number 6 is the access to the personal data. This is very important. That means if you are keeping my data, and I think I want to check what you have, what is the file that you keep on me, I have the right to do that. So even if I didn't deal with this particular organization, I suspect that you might be keeping a file on me. Theoretically, I can go on to that organization and request you to turn over what you have kept of me so I can check. So these are the principles. But in recent years in Hong Kong, we had a lot of data protection problems, and in particular, leakage of data by data users. The first example, and probably the biggest in the last 2 or 3 years, is the losing of USB thumb drives and other little devices that keep the storage devices by hospital staff. We have a large hospital system, public hospital system, and these staff are of course, these are very sensitive information because it has to do with patient, what disease they have, and the treatment, and the ID card, and names, and so on. For some reasons, the staff were taking a taxi and losing the USB thumb drives in the taxi and cannot find them, and so on. Many of these cases occurred, and the public was very concerned. The police, actually, but then again, actually it has to do with use of IT, but not necessarily directly with the internet. Some might even argue that if the staff is using the internet to access these data from a centralized place, and they don't have to carry a thumb drive, it's actually safer, okay? The second case actually directly has to do with the internet, because we have people in Hong Kong, police, for some reason, the law enforcement department seem to, for some time, for a few months, have a rash of occurrence of private information about maybe criminals, maybe the suspects, or secret documents in the government being leaked on the so-called P2P networks. The example here is one network called Foxy, which is quite popular in Hong Kong and Taiwan, but I'm not sure whether it's popular here. Basically, people share these music files and everything on these P2P networks. And for some reason, for a few months, many of these police files turned up in the Foxy directories. And people suspect that maybe some police officers, they take their work home, and their home computer was infected with Foxy and even some of the virus-infected versions of Foxy. So their files, without their knowing, got shared onto the P2P network. And they didn't even know about it. Maybe they didn't even know that there are Foxy on their machines because it was their sons or daughters that were downloading illegal music and so on that was using the same PC, and the fathers and so on, the policemen, were affected. So that's also another example of leaking of information directly having to do with the internet. One of our bank, in fact, I don't want to name names, this bank is also in Sri Lanka, but one of the banks in Hong Kong, one of our biggest banks, actually, when they were doing a renovation project on one of the branches, they actually lose a whole server. I don't know, maybe some renovation worker thought that they can take the server and sell it for some money, and they take the whole thing away. And also they lost some of the tapes when they put it into the mail with personal data of their customers. So that was also a big thing that happened that many people were very surprised. And finally, for those people who have been to Hong Kong, maybe you have used the Octopus card, which is a very convenient smart card that people can use to go on to subway and buses and so on, pay for small payment. And the Octopus company actually, without customer knowing, take these payment information and personal information and sell it to insurance companies and telemarketing companies. So all of a sudden, people started getting a lot of phone calls saying that, hey, do you want to buy insurance, and so on. And that was another thing that was exposed, and the octopus company was under a lot of pressure, and the CEO had to resign in the end. Some of the other enforcement issues in Hong Kong by our personal data protection office also have to do very directly with internet service providers. International internet service providers such as Google and Sony, these are all recent cases in the last several years that you must have heard of. Google collecting Wi-Fi data, and they just don't only collect where the Wi-Fi hotspots are. They actually also collected the data transmitted over the Wi-Fi at the time. So that was actually, of course, not just Hong Kong. In many places in the world, the privacy commissioners were very unhappy about it. The other example was the Google Street View car incident, because they just, again, collected all these information, taking photos, and particularly in a small place like Hong Kong, those pictures, maybe they can see right through into the window and, whatever you were doing at the time. So people were not happy about it. Of course, a recent case, Sony, the PlayStation Network, also they lost a whole bunch of data to hackers. And so our privacy commissioner carried out investigation to demand these companies to tell them, give them reports, and so on. Emerging issues. I just want to close with a few words on some of the emerging issues in terms of personal data protection, privacy, and information security. The first, like I mentioned in the start, is the impact of the social network. On the one hand, people like to share more and more stuff on Facebook and Twitter and so on. People are becoming more and more open. Younger and younger people are getting online. We love the freedom, but then again, there are also many abuses. Facebook, for example, some people claim that they don't tell about their privacy policy in a clear way, and it changes all the time. So these are actually a big problem. Also, that leads to the potential problem of identity fraud, stealing someone's identity and doing something bad with them, pretending that I am somebody else. Another example is a very big problem in Hong Kong and in China. I don't know how bad this may be a problem in other places or in Sri Lanka. It's the so-called, in Chinese, we call them human flash search. That means if I don't like this guy, I'm going to dig out all his information, where he goes to school, where he works, who his father is, and all the information, his ID card number, his phone number, and I put it on the internet. So everybody would start calling him or harassing him, and so on. And actually, usually it happens to younger people. Like if I'm bullying a particular young guy, my classmate, I would do this against him. And particularly because these are young people, many of them are very, very seriously affected emotionally and so on. So this is the so-called cyberbullying problem that is a big problem in many parts of China and in Hong Kong. Of course, there is sometimes then people that come to say, why don't we have a real name system? This is a system that has been used to some extent in Korea and in China and so on. And they're saying that why don't we register everybody, all your SIM cards, all your internet services. Even for people going to cyber cafe, I have to register your ID card so that I know who you are. So if you do something bad, I can find you. There are good and bad about this, and we can continue to debate. Of course, many of us in the internet community believe that anonymity, without telling your real name, is actually very important, because in some extreme situation, I can only say something without being, if I want to say something that maybe my government doesn't allow me to say, I wouldn't want to use my real name. So that is an example of maybe a positive use of anonymity. But then again, we see that the real name system actually also have a lot of problem. In Korea, for example, people that use their online game, you probably know that online game is very, very well developed in Korea. In Korea, actually, they see that some people, they want to make sure that they know who, sometimes we say when you go onto the cyber world, you don't know whether the person is a dog or right, that joke. But the thing is, well, if you think that once you set up a real name system, all the problems are gone, that's wrong. Because we actually have been contacted in Hong Kong by the Korean Government Information Security Agency because they found that the real name system has a side effect. And that effect is that because everybody is identifiable, so the identity of the players become something that people can sell. So in Korea, actually, they did it in a stupid way, in a way that they used the real ID card number to identify people. So all these databases got stolen